So today I was joined by Chris Jones of Echo Project Services. Chris is really in the infancy of his business and started in August last year. He's about to take on his first employee. Really good guy. I've known Chris for a long time, and I've loved Chris's journey. He's worked with some of the larger players, some smaller players, and he eventually took a decision that he needs to do something on his own. And I really liked our chat. Chris was just honest. Had a lot of value about what he's done and the lessons he's learned along the way, and then what he wants the business to be going forward. I think Chris's business is going to grow and do really well, and he's just a bloody lovely guy, and I think you'll all like him. Okay, so welcome to the next episode of Growing Consultancies. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Chris Jones of Echo Project Services. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be here.
So, me and you go back a long time. We've spoken over many years.
Many years, yeah. Various levels of my career.
Absolutely. And then you've obviously fairly recently taken the plunge and set up on your own.
I have.
Which we'll dive into.
I'm sure we will.
Absolutely. So, I guess just let's have a very quick overview of Echo. Obviously conscious right now is yourself.
Yeah.
What sectors is the business mainly focused in?
So we are a small business and we don't pigeonhole ourselves into one specific sector. We are mostly across residential, commercial, and then we dabble in hotels and industrial as kind of four kind of main sort of sector focuses. Yeah. But of course, because of, network, client base, kind of PM collaborators, there's other sectors that we get drawn into and we work across. But I think, it's very much a case of not spreading ourselves too thinly across multiple sectors because the work's there. It's focusing on what we're very good at, what our expertise lies within, and doing a good job within those sectors.
Yeah.
And, touch wood, today it's, it's bearing fruit. It's, it's been a nice start to life in the new business.
So when did the business start?
So I incorporated in the middle of last year.
Yeah.
And I launched the business after getting married in August, came back, launched the business mid-August. Wow. So we're sort of, 7 months?
Yeah.
Months young. We're already in our infancy, Paul, but
so some people would say, exciting part. Some people, there's an interesting, they say a lot of the very best businesses start in difficult times. And obviously you could argue 2025 wasn't a brilliant year I don't think it was a terrible year for the industry, but it was a flat year.
It was a flat year, and that was kind of partly what drove me to do it because, I left a very good, well-established business where, I was part of the furniture, a good level of seniority, had built a nice team around me and a comfort zone effectively. But, you don't get anywhere in life without taking a risk, right, Paul? And, we're QSs, we're not risk averse, but we're always calculating risks, part of what we do. And I always got in the back of your head, well, can I do this for myself? I've got a load of miles on the clock. I know a lot of people, hopefully got a good reputation, good at what I do. Yeah. Let's give it a go. And my thinking of launching in 2025 when it was a bit flat is if we can get through the first few months in a sticky market, lay the foundations, start to build the brand, start to get the Echo name out there, start to build a reputation for doing good work. Yeah, we're in a good place for when things then start to kick on and the market bounces back. So
100%, yeah.
That was the mindset behind it.
Good.
And yeah, watch this space.
Awesome. Good. Right, so let's take you right back to the beginning. How did you become a QS in the first place?
Well, we've only got an hour, so it wasn't a conventional route into QSing for me. Yeah. So I loved school, but I wasn't great at the actual work side of school. Right. So
the social side.
Yeah, more the social side. It was like a big social club for me. You came out of my GCSEs having not done as well I probably could have.
Yeah.
And scraped into doing A-levels, did those, exactly the same thing, not enough UCAS points to go to university.
Right.
But equally, I'd always kind of had an eye on, I just want to go start working, start earning some money, start, working in business. So rather than go to university, I got a job with central government, actually, the Ministry of Agriculture, a bit of a out the left fields, but
Random.
yeah, it was, and it,
Doing what?
just doing sort of admin,
Right. Okay.
and it was kind of like a wage coming in. I was working in Westminster at the time. I thought, yeah, this is good, but it wasn't a career. It was kind of, it was a means to an end at the time. It gave me really good grounding in sort of how to do things in terms of how sort of work works, not necessarily business, because it's government side. But equally, I very quickly kind of knew this wasn't for me. I think there's a certain kind of mindset in central government working that is different to the private sector.
Yeah.
So I left there, went on to Visit Britain, which was the tourist boards, which is kind of like a Quango type government sort of private sector, and started to work on the kind of website side of things, not actually physically building the website, but it was a time when websites were starting to develop, and we were kind of looking in the background at how if someone clicks on the website, where does each click go, what do they see, what's the imagery, what's how's the path. So a little bit of sort of tech side to it. But with that, what came with that is a classic, is they said, oh, this is really good, we love what you do, but actually we can outsource this to India for half the price that we're paying you guys. So we were all on a redundancy notice, which at the time, when you sort of late teens, early 20s, you think this is the end of my life. What am I going to do here? It's kind of catastrophic. But actually, taking a step back, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to people, because my dad was a building surveyor. He was quite senior in a company at the time called Micallef Parkman. Because I was quite sort of good with the tech, he said, look, well, don't worry about the redundancy. Why don't you come do a bit of stuff shadowing the building surveyors here on school surveys, which I did for a few weeks. I didn't like surveying toilets. I kind of quickly realised I'm not a building surveyor. But he also said, well, look, we've got a QS here, and he could do with some support. So I had to sit down with him. He started telling me what he did. I was kind of shadowing that. I thought, actually, this is all right. I quite like this. And then, it was still kind of monthly kind of rolling casual work, but it kind of then triggered in my head, this could be for me. This could be a path. And where, as I said, I came out of school not necessarily having performed brilliantly, where I'd actually gone into work, I then put myself through a night course doing business management at an HNC. So I had then the UCAS points behind me to then be able to get on a RICS accredited degree.
Brilliant.
And at the time I was playing rugby. A friend of mine was a QS at a company local in Eltham, and he said, we've got an opening for assistants. Do you want to have an interview? And we went from there. So
brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, this is early 2000s, pre-recession, good times rolling, abundance of work. So I was lucky, and they sponsored the degree, did the sort of 5-year day release track, and didn't look back. So I mean, by the time I graduated, I was sort of 5 years into QSing, picked it up really quickly, progressed quickly. So because the degree was RICS accredited, I could do my APC within a year of graduating.
Good.
And that, that my mindset was right, get a degree, get as good a grade as I can, get the APC as soon as I can. Once I've got those letters, I'm away. That's it. So and then
who was that business? Who was that business you did the
Bailey Garner?
Right, excellent.
Bailey Garner, yeah. So I spent a couple of years at Bailey Garner, which was a really good grounding. It was local, but really good sort of small practice, multi-dis. Some great team. And then I was lured by the bright lights of Davis Langdon.
Right,
at the time when it was DL, which was amazing.
I mean, they're in the height of the power, and they're really in the O2
Yeah. And that was one of those things where it was, the company had kind of amazing projects, great leadership. We had a nice office. We had a really good sort of culture. And you thought, this is the place to be. But all good things come to an end, right? And this is pre-recession, so once 08 hit, market crashed.
Yeah.
DL kind of contracted really quickly.
Yes.
I was in the red team, so we were kind of retail,
Right.
which was hit pretty quick.
Yeah.
Which kind of led us again to another kind of redundancy scenario. So the whole business went on notice, and then there were kind of various
people don't realise. Sorry, Chris, go across. People don't realise how severe 08 was.
Oh my God,
they
it's catastrophic.
Really don't realise how severe it was.
Yeah,
is insane.
It was, but actually, again, what I've always done through my career is try to, if I've moved, it's never been a sideways move or a move for the sake of moving.
Yeah.
It's, where can I go that's gonna take me on to the next level, gonna open doors into something else that then takes me on to the next level.
Yeah.
So again, similar to when the redundancy at Visit Britain happened, and it led me into the path of surveying. At DL, we were heavily into private sector, which was obviously hit immediately by the crash.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paul Zuccarelli at the time, he had a contact who they had just won 3-year framework contracts on the rail network, NEC contracts. So I'd always been JCT, said, look, they're looking for a QS, I'll recommend you, which was great. Had a chat with those guys. They took me on. So, in the middle of a really bad recession, as we've spoken about, the opportunity actually came that I was able to move into something that had a solid, fee structure for the next 3+ years.
Yes, good.
But also took voluntary redundancy and bought a house.
Wow.
So,
wasn't all bad.
It kind of all worked out, right? So, but then I think from then, then you're kind of finding your feet, because I did a good couple of years there under the NEC contract, doing this sort of, it was kind of station and not track repairs, but the station kind of infrastructure.
Okay.
It was okay, but it wasn't, for me, I sort of feel, this isn't where I kind of want to be long term.
Yeah.
And it was at the point where I was at that APC piece. So, right, I need to get chartered. Where am I going to get chartered? Who's got the support? Where can I transfer my skills as well? Which took me to EC Harris.
Right.
So in their infrastructure team.
Yeah.
So I actually did my chartership under the NEC, which was interesting. But yeah, and again, great business, really good sort of, really good APC network. A lot of
again, they were a brilliant business at the time.
And funnily enough, a lot of the guys who sort of span out of DL also then were at ECH. So what you kind of find, as we were touching on before we started, is the industry is big, but in what we do, especially when you sort of start to position into sectors, it's familiar faces, people that you kind of work with, and that was kind of how it was. So got tried at ECH, and then I'd kind of cut my teeth at a couple of really big practices, and I've got nothing against them. They're really, really good, and I think as a grounding in how to do things properly and structure and a kind of corporate business, it's invaluable. But then I was starting to think, I'm a small fish in a big pond. What's the next step for me? What's going to lead me to, I've just got chartered, I'm at senior surveyor level. How do I get to AD? Where's the next step? And that was when I started a move away from the sort of bigger kind of corporate QS firms into more of an SME type size business. And purely, I think, it depends, but I think you tend to get a bit more responsibility. You're at the coalface. It's a kind of more of starting to do a bit more of a business development type kind of aspect and bringing that into it. So a couple of years.
It can be dangerous with the wrong large consultancy where you can get stuck and not have the opportunity. I think some still absolutely give that, but I would agree, generally probably more SMEs give you that opportunity, I guess.
I think so. Yeah. It's not always the case, and it depends what they're working on. But ultimately, and this sort of structure, the senior leadership, I guess. But I've always been I've always put myself out there. I've always put my hand up to do more than just the work. You know, I'm a social guy, so even coming through all these businesses, I was social secretary, which meant you got to know everyone, kind of leading the charge to lead the social charge. But again, you know, I like that. I liked going out and meeting clients. I like doing a bit more than just the fee earning. Don't get me wrong, the fee earning is what brings the fee in. But also, you know, starting to get in your head, right? Get out and meet people, fill up your black book. Even I always think it's not a wasted meeting. You know, even you're sitting around a table of 6 other QSs at a lunch, you think, what am I going to get out of this? You get a lot out of this. You know, what are they working on? What sort of clients are they doing? What are they doing that's different to you? You know, and you can pick out the bits and cherry pick these bits to think, right, put that in the bank. And then, you know, now we're Echo. What are the good bits? You know, what are the people doing? And how can we kind of, you know, integrate some of that into what we're doing, but also think, how can we do that better?
Yeah.
So it's, you know,
100%. And obviously, I always say to people, just concentrate on becoming good at networking and get out to these events as much as you can from as early an age you can, and kind of build that muscle, because it takes time to develop that skill.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, it's one of those things where even if, you know, you've got a junior working for you, take them to a lunch, take them to a breakfast, take them to a networking event. You know, they might stand there completely silent or awkward, and you will at the start because it's daunting, right? But you will soon start to understand, you know, how these things work. You know, at the end of the day, this big scary client who's the head of whatever is still just another girl or bloke that are coming to work and want to work with people that they want to work with. You know, so you know, once that sort of, you know, the nervousness around it softens and you're interacting on a human level, I think that's when people get it and they can start to say, right, you know, it's all about relationships, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. 100% is, and you know, don't burn bridges in life, because it's like we've touched on a couple of times now. Yeah, it's small. It's a smaller world than you think within the construction market. Definitely, you know, so if you never always just try and treat people right, you know, do a decent job. Don't be an idiot.
Absolutely. Well,
it shouldn't be that complicated.
A few times.
Well, yeah, we all have.
But not in that respect. That's right. Yeah.
So EC Harris, you left EC Harris, and so obviously, so both the firm before and EC Harris, that was all infrastructure, and then I presume the next move was back into more to property.
Back into building, yeah. So it was a company called Bollingbrook, who ended up being bought by Colliers, but not before we had sort of 5 or 6 amazing years. I think of all the companies I've worked at, that was probably the best in terms of it just had a sweet spot of a really good group of people working for them.
I always seem to recall that it seems to be quite a close-knit group.
And we're still, you know, all pretty much friends that have come out of it. But at the time, you know, when I joined, we were in Clapham, and we quickly moved to Soho, which is a bit of a game changer for the business, but also for the team. It kind of brought in a real sort of social aspect, and you know, it was a bit of a play hard, work hard, play hard kind of culture. But everyone there was, you know, we felt like we were working on great projects for great clients. We were in a nice office location. There was a bit of European travel, you know, and it just really was like a real sweet spot. Time, you know, that they'd fostered that culture. And yeah, I think, you know, there was was an AD there.
Okay.
It was a PM firm with a QS team. So again, my boss at the time, Steve, was XDL. So when I had the interview with him, I said, look, I want to get out of infrastructure. So, you've been in infrastructure a little while. So I'm XDL. He went, right, we'll give you a go, because I know you.
I was gonna ask you that. I think a lot of people, I have a lot of conversations with people who want to change sector, and different people have different views about QSs. You know, so you know, there's I think there seems to always be two schools of thought with it. One is, it's not that straightforward to do. Others will go, if you're a QS, you're a QS. You can work it out to cost them. You can work it out to deal with the contracts. You've got those core skills, and the sector's irrelevant.
I think so. I mean, you know, when I've been hiring, obviously you look at the experience. I'll ring you up and say, Paul, look, I want a senior QS. They will go have commercial experience, residential experience, this, the unicorn. And you go, well, the market's tight at the moment. Good people are getting well looked after. I've got a few people that maybe tick 1 out of 5 boxes, but I've got this guy or girl who's really bright. Has done a bit of that. They're stuck in a slightly different sector and want to get out of it. Loads of potential. Those are the people. As long as they've got that kind of get up and go, that kind of like I said, the aptitude to learn. Put the hard yards in. You go right. Could be a diamond in the rough.
And the people bit that you were talking about earlier as well. That's one of the key things, isn't it? You've got to be. The danger for some QSs, they get stuck in the weeds too much, and they don't concentrate the people side of it.
I think there's it's an interesting profession that you've got the people who are the social animals. You've got the people who are very technical, and then you can often find that the social animals are a little bit too social animals, and the technical isn't quite there. The technical guys are really technical, but they can't talk to people.
Yeah.
And you go, well, and like I said, the unicorn in the middle is the ones that then start as a growth trajectory of their career.
Yeah.
They're the ones that start to sort of separate and go through. But you need a blend of everything.
Yeah,
you've got a perfect team. If you've got everyone who wants to be a CEO, none of the work's going to get done. You need to strike a balance. You need the right people in the right roles.
100%.
And have that blend.
Yeah, 100%.
I think sometimes, in the past when we've sat around boardroom tables and you're looking at the dynamic of your team and you go, I could get a bit more out of him, a bit more out of her, and you think, actually, no, that not everyone's the same.
Yeah.
Not everyone's going to be the next CEO, or but
and nor should they, because you'd be in a real trouble if everyone wanted to, wouldn't they?
Exactly, that's it. Yeah,
you'd have a constant door. Well, Orlando people would just leave, wouldn't they? Because
exactly.
You got to. Don't get me wrong, you do need, and I think there's a real crisis about the future leadership in the consultancy world. But you do need your good individuals who are just really good at doing the job, and actually that brings them sufficient joy in their careers, and not everyone aspires to be a leader.
Yeah. What's your fear on this kind of leadership piece then?
That
I'm reversing the question.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That I think in the consultancy world at the moment, everybody's moving at 100 miles an hour. Any organisation I speak to, whether it's your size organisation, Chris, or a large organisation, everyone to varying degrees is overutilised.
Yeah.
Unless a company's got it wrong and they suddenly find they've got people sat on the bench, which maybe a few of the larger businesses are suffering from at the moment. But generally speaking, I think so. Going back to your DL days and maybe even before you started DL, there was an element about that I think people had time to mentor people better.
Yeah.
And I think now there's just a lack of time in the system, and so I don't think people are being mentored or supported. I think you've got some senior leaders who probably are maybe frustrated with the attitudes of some people and just say, "I'll just do it myself." Then I'll do it myself. So I don't think there's the patience or the planning around succession planning for the industry at the moment.
Yeah. I can see where you're coming from. I think there is, there's probably an underlying piece that, it is a tough market and there's fee pressures, right?
Yeah.
There's also client-driven pressures. So, we'd all love to have, a load of apprentices or juniors and a load of time sit down with them and coach them and develop them. But the reality is, business has got an overhead. The client says, I want to work with you, but your fee's too high. Cut your cloth accordingly. We need this done yesterday. And you're under pressure yourself, putting the team together for a client. So I'd love to, do that development piece and bring that in. But like when you said, it'd be quicker to do it myself. At the moment, I haven't got any choice because I'm doing it myself. But you can't. You've always got an eye on. Well, is there a risk that the client goes, why have I got Joe Bloggs Jr. on my job when you said you were going to deliver?
Yeah.
And I think it's unfortunate. And I think back to DL days. I think, you know, what the guys were really good at there is giving the time up to that kind of next gen and sort of bringing us to meetings, bringing us along for the ride. And I've got a lot of time for that myself. So I think, you know, growth plan for the business. Now we've got our foundations in. I've got senior QS joining me next month, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Great
brilliant.
guy. I've known him for years.
Good.
He gets it, and he's going to be a real asset to the business.
Brilliant.
And then I think the next step will then be to bring in someone at a more junior level to support us both. But I think you're right. You know, we need to make sure that we've got time to dedicate to those guys and girls to make sure that, you know, they're not just thrown to the lions and they actually come through, you know, doing things properly. Being able to handle themselves in a meeting, knowing the right thing to say and when not to say things. But it's, you know, I mean, I think there is a fear for the industry that people just don't know what QS is. You know, if you go to school, I've done a bit of school stuff because I'm an advocate for the industry. I think, you know, once I finally found my feet within construction, particularly surveying, it's looked after me amazingly. You know, and to give something back, people just don't know what we do.
No.
If you did a straw poll, Joe Blogs on the street, you'd probably get 70%. If you said, "What's a QS?" They'll go, "Don't really know." You know,
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
you know,
100%.
and at that sort of grassroots level, coming through school, you know, you ask a load of kids, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" None of them go QS. But they're actually, you know, it's a really great career.
Great career and well paid, increasingly well paid relative to other
Opportunities
professions.
everywhere, you know, opportunity to travel, work in Dubai, you know.
I think that's it. Once you got your MRI, like certainly if you grow up in the UK construction market and you become MRICS, I have to say to it, it's like having a passport. Then you can just spin the globe. Where do you want to go in the world? Because, you know, British QS is so well thought of. Still, it was still. The British QS is still, maybe unfairly to other countries, but the British QS is still seen as the top of the range. And so if you become a chartered British QS, you literally can say, right, where do you want to go live? Take you.
Exactly.
There'll be a job there for you.
100%. So, look, I mean, you know, I don't know how they change it, and you know, it is going to be an issue. But
it's never. I mean, it's been an issue for a long time now, or forever. You know, construction, I think, has always had a struggle to market itself. It's quite fascinating doing this podcast. Actually, I honestly assumed a lot of people, when I asked them that question, particularly when I'm speaking to QSs, probably all professions, is that, you know, somebody in my family did it, and that's, you know, and it's amazing the varied routes like yours about how people end up in the profession. But the one thing I don't think, I might be wrong with this, 30 plus episodes in, but I don't think anyone said to me, "I want to be a QS."
I know.
When they did it, they usually somehow fell into it.
I know. Well, yeah. I just think it's just, you know, we need to do more to make a noise about it.
Yeah,
because, you know, there's a lot of noise on LinkedIn. Obviously, you know, it's great for what we do once you're in the business, but it's, you know, it's in its own little kind of construction bubble, isn't it? And you know, unless you kind of know about it, and you know, I said to my mum, "What's LinkedIn?" She'd go, "Don't know." So you see the podcast, mum. But it's going to be like, it's a kind of education piece, I guess. And, you know, even like careers level, I mean, where the bigger firms, you know, kudos to them, they get out there, get to universities, get, you know, the younger faces.
Yeah, they do. And some of them are brilliant. Some of the larger firms are brilliant at, you know, making sure that they have a really credible number of both graduates and apprentices start each year. And the ones who do that right, actually, are some of the ones who've really fueled their growth. Yeah, like my largest client is Turner and Townsend. They absolutely, every year they invest heavily in that, and it's like, you know, that's sport that's created many of their future leaders off the back of it. So
I mean, at PBC, we, as a team of 5, 2 of the 5 were apprentices.
Brilliant.
And
well, you've done it yourself, Chris. You know, and this is another thing that causes a lot of contentious debate. But if I was a, you know, I have a 16 to 18-year-old again, and I wanted to be a QS, I'd absolutely want to go down the apprentice QF route. A, you don't get saddled with a shed load of debt.
100%.
But B, you're doing the theory and the practical at the same time. Whereas,
Exactly that.
for years and years, a big issue for the industry bemoaning, oh, we've got a graduate QS, now we have to teach them what a QS does for a living.
Yeah. No, that's it. Yeah, exactly. I would always advocate for that route. On paper you think, oh, I've got 5 years at university. The business or the government, the structure now for a business, you almost get 100% of the apprentice course paid. It's a no-brainer for a business to take on an apprentice.
100%.
No-brainer for the apprentice to take on
100%.
that.
Certainly for QS, certainly for QS firms, I think.
Yeah.
I think there's a bigger, wider debate about the apprenticeship model and why we're not having more apprentices. And I think certainly for things like trades, I think there's a genuine challenge about the cost and the time to manage somebody within that world, justifying it. But
yeah, but I mean, I think the whole school system isn't set up to support that.
No,
it's pure academia.
Yeah.
And my son is going down the trade route. He's just about to sit his GCSEs. He wants to do electrical engineering.
Brilliant.
He's going down the trade apprenticeship route.
Amazing.
But school, until he's done his GCSEs, there's nothing he can do in
But even then, when he gets to that, and hopefully, Chris, you can maybe bring some of your contacts to bear.
Yeah.
But even then, you only have to go on LinkedIn and see the amount of people who are on LinkedIn desperately trying to get their son or daughter an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lack of them out there.
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of trade companies can't justify the cost of it for the ROI because
it comes back to what we were saying there, isn't it? There's the pressure. We've got fee pressures. They've got profit pressures. And yeah, I mean, kudos to those that take them on and nurture them, because it's
we need to do. The industry needs to do it, but you can understand the pressures of why they do it.
Mm.
Okay, so Bollingbrook got bought out by Colliers.
Yeah.
Fair to say, obviously, much bigger business. Again, Colliers is a good business, but I guess probably a very different dynamic from where you were.
Yeah.
And so then, I don't know what the timescales were from Colliers to then going, but you then ended up at PBC.
Yeah. So, I think it was a culture shock coming from the Bollingbrook environment back into the corporate world. Yeah, Colliers, as you say, great business, really well established. Just wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I'd known Paul at PBC for a couple of years, and moved across to PBC. Set the QS team up. So it was before we set the QS team up. It was kind of PM and professional services,
right?
And there was a natural sort of gap bit in the business there to say, well, you can bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, brilliant.
We're giving fees out the door to third party QSs where we wrap a QS PM fee around a scheme. So yeah, that was 2019. So nicely timed coming into a new team up.
That's quite an interesting thing, actually. I think I've asked anybody this before, but I think a lot of my conversations recently, I've started to realise this. So how did Paul deal with that? Because I think some of the nervousness around that is that they possibly maybe got a lot of their work from QS firms and vice versa. I know some of my QS clients who are pure QS, as much as they're probably interested in maybe going into PM, they wouldn't do because it's like, well, we get a lot of work from PM firms. So how was that managed, would you say?
Yeah, there was a nervousness around that, and there was a lot of discussions and sort of preparations of sort of business unit, business plans, and how do we overcome that. As I sort of touched on, there was an element of kind of sort of fee generation on the QS side that meant it wasn't just a completely cold start.
Yeah.
But it did ultimately sort of close the door on some of those QS practice relationships. But I think it was a risk versus reward scenario where they were hoping that they were backing the right horse, and equally I was hoping that I was the right horse to back.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's how it transpired. I think we kind of, great business with a great set of clients, and the kind of cross-selling ethos was then, well, now we've got an extra business service that we can, sort of join the dots together with what we do, and take to clients. And a lot of the clients, they were happy to do that. And we did have our own, and they still do, sort of just direct QS work, but then equally going in as a sort of PM QS offering was fruitful for us. And we grew things I was set it up in 2019. COVID quickly hit, but we still grew through COVID.
Good.
And then we grew year on year. Really, it was just it was good.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
Good. So yeah, again, I think you had a good time there, from what you told me in the past, Chris. So, but at what point did that kernel start going off in your head that you were like, you know what, I think maybe I want to do my own thing? When did that start in your head?
I've always had it in my head that I would
Right.
set up my own business.
Yes.
Right from years and years ago. And we were speaking earlier. It's just it's a timing, isn't it? Now having done it now, as I said to you earlier, it feels like I wish I'd done this years ago. But actually, the reality is, if I had, it would have been more of a risk, and it would have been potentially, a gamble. Whereas I think having been through that sort of career history that I've had, as I said, put the hard yards in, not only in the work but on the networking. Sort of building my own kind of personal reputation meant that when I was having discussions at home with my wife, saying that this is the plan, she's like, we've got a mortgage, we've got kids, are we going to be able to keep a roof over? I said, well, you got to back yourself, you've got to take a risk.
Yeah, of course you have it.
As I said, QSs, we take calculated risks. I didn't see it as a risk because I thought, it's going to be me, my phone and a laptop, low overhead.
Yeah.
We don't need a great deal of work to get going.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it was it wasn't a difficult decision because I think I got on really well with the people at PBC. Paul, a lot of respect for Paul, Dave, the guys who run the company, and ultimately, I want to set my business up and not leave them in the lurch type thing. So, we had a lot of discussions around it, and a lot of sort of grown up conversations because I think there can be this kind of tendency if people leave the business to go, they've thrown us under a bus here, dead to me type thing.
Yeah,
and I've never understood that.
Yeah,
Never. It is sad because you've helped grow their business, but equally they've helped you grow personally. So it wasn't like that. We left on really good terms.
Nice, good.
And it was just timing.
Yeah,
it was just timing. And as I was saying, we flat year in 2025. Quite a difficult market. My thinking was, I've got from August to see this year out. There's a lot of talk that 26 the tap could get turned on various sectors and start to grow. So if we can get the business established, get the brand out there, start conveying the message of what we do, winning some business, showing what we can do, that kind of gathering some momentum in terms of and some traction on a project basis, then when things do start to pick up, we're there, we're established and we're growing and we're ready to go. And I think it has been, January.
Good.
I mean, there's difficult things going on in the world, which we're yet to see the trickle down effects of that.
Yeah.
But since the turn of the year, things have been busy. It's been good.
I'll say that the same. I'd describe our year 2025 as a flat year, but so far 2026 has been just mental. It's just like clients coming in with left, right, and centre. Existing clients, brand new clients never worked with, saying, "Look, we need people." Interestingly, a lot of kind of director level activity. A lot of companies trying to really strengthen their team.
Right, interesting.
So it's so far, touch wood, and like I say, hopefully geopolitical things don't knock things off. But generally speaking, it feels strong at the moment. It feels like a good market at the moment for 2026.
Yeah.
So. And I think it's one of the hardest things to do, as I'm sure you found. But where did the name came from?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to give you some sort of David Brent answer. I kind of thought it was a nod to where we live. We live on Echo Square.
Oh, nice.
And I thought, actually, I can brand that quite nicely.
Yeah.
It's kind of got connotations of sort of resonating well, and and the project services, obviously, we are a QS firm, but equally we're EA. We can.
I think people don't think about that. If you put it in the title one way or the other,
that's it,
it's like you're a quantity surveyor or you're a project manager. It's like a bit more tricky then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it kind of gives a bit of flexibility really on what we can offer, later down the line. But as I said, at the outset, we're focusing on what we do and focusing on what we do well, and that very much is cost consultancy, EA. And then we'll see where it goes. But we kind of just trade under Echo. I thought it was quite snappy.
Yeah.
You can make a logo look good.
A lot of people just drive themselves in circles trying to think.
You can overthink it, honestly. You should have seen how many names I had. Me and my wife going, right, how does this sound? What does this look like?
Easier to spell your child's name than it.
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? I know. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's, it's got a bit of kind of, it's a little bit unconventional, I guess, for a QS firm name, but I'm probably a little bit unconventional myself, and I don't want it to just be
good
Jones QS Limited.
It's got to be reflective of you as an individual, sure. But I also think as well, on a more realistic level, you could call yourself anything. It's about what you actually do, the quality of what you do for your clients, but then also how you manage people, how you develop people, how you grow the business. It's like
and how you carry yourself. And again, I think you and I had a conversation on the phone when I was at the infancy of what I was doing, looking at potentially bringing the first hire. And it's exactly that, it's, you were saying, well, what's your position in the market? What's your USP? That kind of stuff. And, a good QS practice should be a good QS practice. Everyone should be able to do the job. And I'm not saying we're doing anything that's enormously different. I think what the business is built on is relationships. As I said, I'm a people person. Clients come first. We work with a lot of project managers. They come first. Delivery has to be good. Availability, communication. If a client's ringing me at 9:00 on a Sunday night, I'm answering the phone. You've got to be there. You've got to be present. You've got to be delivering. And you're right. I could just have a blank piece of paper with an E on it. That's my logo. But if behind that is a really good, robust cost plan and the advice that comes with it, that's what they're paying
you
for.
could have the snazziest name ever, and if you do a shit job, then
exactly,
you're not going to do very well.
No, that's it. Yeah. Haven't been found out yet.
Good, excellent. So you touched on that you've got a senior QS join you in 2 weeks, which is brilliant. Hopefully, we'll free you up to, I guess, get out there and do more kind of client-facing work in terms of getting out there and maybe securing more work. And it's often I think we touched on it. When you first start, you literally wear about a dozen hats as a small business owner, and it's sometimes really difficult to juggle all of that.
Yeah, it is. Do you know? I mean, I kind of like it because every minute of every day that I put in comes out the other side. For me in the business.
Yeah, good.
And the fun stuff, branding and websites, all that. That doesn't pay the bills, but it is quite enjoyable. But ultimately, it is that kind of that plate spinning piece, and you still got to live your life, and you still got to carve out time for your family, and a bit of downtime. But I think I was talking to someone this morning over breakfast, and they were saying mindset as me. If I had to work 23 out of 24 hours to do what I've got to deliver, then I'll do it because as I said, that's what people are paying me for, and they want that service, and that's the service that we've promised to deliver, and we're going to do it.
Yeah, but door of the door, so to speak, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But like you said, I've still got to write policies, or you had to write policies. I'm the T-boy, I'm the HR.
Yeah.
But you just find the time to do it, and I think, as I said, kind of senior QS coming in, it's going to be great, and then it's kind of and then how do we sort of look to consolidate a team around he and I, and then look to sort of scale the business from there.
Good. So what's the setup at the moment? Do you have an office? You work from home? What's your setup?
We have an office space in Farringdon.
Nice.
So not far from here.
Brilliant. Yeah, excellent. Good.
Yeah,
easy walk.
Good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I started, 100% home working, coming into London for meetings, but you kind of quickly, you realise that sort of pitching in prep is not a good look. And there's only so far you can get with that. The Ricks is a really good resource. They've got a flexible office there, and that we kind of used a fair amount.
Right.
And then the other thing is, just once you tell people what you're doing and you've got a kind of support network around you in terms of contacts, and as I said, a lot of people that I've worked with have become friends, project managers, other QSs, contractors, consultants, everyone you speak to come and sit in our office. If you need a desk, that's amazing, Paul. That kind of just support that people give. But you don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a burden on them. And, equally, as a business, we want to, have foundations in an office. So
100%.
yeah, we're set up there.
I'm a big believer in it. I think yeah. I'm an advocate of people being sat in an office and working. I think it just, it'd be a lot easier. I know it sounds like the guy you're taking on, you've both known each other for a long time, but still, you'll bounce off each other a lot more if you sat together day in, day out.
No, but equally, if a client says, "Look, I'm thinking about buying this building, you got half an hour, meet me down at St Paul's." Well, hang on, mate, it's going to take me an hour to get in.
100%. If you're in the London private sector market, commercial, residential, hospitality, often that is it, and that's what a lot of my clients will say to me. We're not being harsh and saying we're putting people in the office. It's just that we're in a place where a lot of our clients are saying, "Can you meet me for a coffee?"
Exactly.
Or the contract's saying, "Can you meet me for a coffee? We've got an issue we need to resolve." Much easier to do it face to face than jump on a Teams call.
It is. I think there is a balance. I think the post-COVID kind of working practice has changed mindsets.
Yes. Yeah.
And as much as people are saying, "Well, return to the office" and all this kind of stuff, I think you want people to be motivated, but to be, have that work-life balance and be able to sort of do the work around home and not lose sight of that. But you're right, it's the guy who's joining, I sort of said to him that you're coming into a startup essentially, and you're first in the door, and you're going to help me grow this thing. But with that comes an element of we've got to be flexible, we've got to be nimble, we've got to be available.
Yeah.
As if we're not, there's someone else who will, and there's a lot of hungry mouths out there.
100%. So, what are the growth plans for the office, for the business, Chris? Where do you, if we were sat down in another 5 years, appreciate it's never a perfect science, and anybody who thinks they're going to write a business plan and it would be accurate in 5 years is probably delusional. But where do you think you'd like to be in 5 years?
That's a good question. I think we'd have a nice solid team of 10 to 15 of us, I think.
Nice.
And
good size.
With that would come a reasonable level of turnover. I touched on the piece about the project services, but again, the reason for coming out and being wholly independent QS is because that's what we're going to be. And I think if we start bolting PMs in, it narrows the market for us. So I think we will be a QS focused firm. And I'm an ambitious guy, but I'm not going to say, look, we're going to be the next TNT or this or that. I think what we want to grow organically, we want to do it the right way. Good reputation, a nice client base, people enjoying working with us. I think, again, we spend so much time at work. We spend so much time with the people we work with. You want them to work with you because they like you and what we do, and the process we have is enjoyable.
You've got to enjoy it as well, and you've got to I think know yourself, both in terms of being honest with yourself about what you're good at, what you're not good at, what you enjoy, what you do not enjoy. What sacrifices you're prepared to make, if you really want to grow something big, and will that make you happy? All those things you've got to really sit down and be honest with yourself. If you can absolutely build a 10 to 15 person business and be super profitable,
exactly,
and enjoy what you do, equally you may have aspirations much more beyond that, and again, that's fine. You just need to reconcile that they're very different paths, and make sure that you're happy with whatever that path is. It's really important.
Agreed.
Good. So, a question I ask a lot of people on this podcast is around what their view is on tech, AI. What are you doing now as a one person, soon to be 2 person operation? What are your thoughts on all of that? And
I've got a lot of time for it. The back end of my time at PBC, we introduced AI driven takeoff software,
Right, brilliant.
which was great.
Really good.
And we're implementing that in Echo as well.
Okay, good.
I watched a couple of your podcasts. So, when I was starting out, it was scale rulers and measuring paper. We've come a long way from that.
Yeah.
You'd
You'd be amazed how many QS is still clutching on to that scale rule and don't believe they have to let go of it.
The thing with the AI tech is amazing. I think there is still a nervousness around it. I'm keen to embrace it because I think it is the future. A lot of the grey hairs are kind of think, okay, but it can't be completely right. And there is still an element of the tech is learning as it goes. And I think it only comes through experience, Paul. When you put a drawing through this program, it spits out in seconds a load of quants, and just through having done it for 25 years, you go, that's something not right there. And you look back on it and you go, all right, it's picking this up as that, or it's doing this. And it saved 80% of the time, but there's that 20% of the time that you need to.
That's the worry in the industry, isn't it? Is that what a lot of, and I think this is a very fair comment, is that exactly that, because you've done it for a long time, you've 20 plus years of doing it, you intuitively know whether it looks right or wrong. Yeah. Whereas in a grad or an apprentice,
that's where it's
like purely on it.
Yeah.
They don't have that intuition that you've.
No. So they might take it as read.
Yeah.
And then you've got 15-20% error baked into maybe 50 drawings.
Yeah.
That when you bake that into your numbers, you're going to get a phone call from the client and it's going, this is wrong.
Yeah.
So I've got, as I said, I've got loads of time for it, but I think especially at that graduate level, it's got to be an element of doing it right, doing it properly. I think again it comes back to what we were saying about putting the right amount of time in, self-checking. One of my biggest frustrations with people who are coming up, they're under pressure, but there's right. I've done a task. That's it. I've sent it to you to check. You check it and you spend as long as they've taken to do it, checking through what they've done, because it's kind of there's not been that next level of I've done it. Then we go back to the start, go through it and think, oh, that's not quite right, and again you're sort of marking your own homework before you then pass it up the line and say, is this all right? And you want them to go, yeah, it is, not get the red pen out.
Yeah.
And that's the risk with the AI is it's still evolving and it's really good. You've got to have that.
Well, I think this is the general, what we were touching on earlier about, I don't think there's enough time in the system at the moment, because I think most consultancies are stretched in terms of they've got a lack of resource, because it's hard to find good people at the right price for that business. And then on top of that, you've got very demanding clients. And we all live in an era, don't we? Now everything we do is like, we're all, I think phones are bloody nightmare. We're all pre-programmed. It's like somebody WhatsApps you, right? You've got to feel to respond.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think we all, with everything, any supplier we engage with, you've got this expectation. It's like a message, I need a response.
Yeah.
And probably your clients are everyone. This is a societal thing, not reflecting on any individual client or organization. It's a societal thing that we all expect quicker data, quicker response on things.
You notice it in project programs. We'll sit down with the PM and say, look, we want 8 weeks to put a really detailed stage 4 cost plan together. But I've only given you 4. Well, do you want a detailed cost plan, or do you want us to do it in 4 weeks? If the client wants to finish by, come on, it's just everything.
Yeah.
Everything is getting
complicated. So that's the temptation, isn't it, with AI
or
tech generally? I think people are confusing tech with AI, but that's a temptation, isn't it? And if you do that, then there is a danger. We're also in a downward spiral in terms of people we bring into the industry, not having that
exactly
that bedrock of doing things. I'm sure you had times when you were a young QS, Chris, when it felt like monotonous some days, just going over the same data over and over again. But what you were baking in is that knowledge that now 20 plus years on, intuitively, that cost plan is wrong.
Yeah. I mean, if they pulled the plug on everything now, I could still get a drawing out.
Yeah.
But
and we are at a funny balance point, aren't we? Because that's a perfectly sound argument that I can still do this. And it's like, I still know
Still
first
do.
principles.
You know,
Yeah,
sometimes there's not a scale bar on that. Let's get back to first principles.
yeah.
There's no harm in that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
As much as you want to be
Yeah.
at the coalface of the tech, you still got to get it right. And if it means an extra couple of hours going through it, that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah. And you got to make sure that whatever tech you're using is absolutely bomb-proof, and it's bomb-proof that if you're going to start relying on it. So we're a funny place, I think.
Yeah.
For sure, we have an increasing skill shortage touching back to the point about why the industry doesn't get more people into the industry. I'm not sure anybody's got a fix for that just yet. So on top of that, and then increasing pressures, timescales, etc. We are going to continue to have this. We're about to. I think the stat came out back in the last year from Rick's that I think the average age of a chartered surveyor is 55.
Is that right?
And it's like, wow. And so it's an aging demographic. We're going to lose probably a lot of those individuals who were some of the ones who did grow up in an environment where they took time to mentor other people. About to retire, let's face it, the next probably 5 years now, 5-10 years.
Yeah, that's interesting, actually. Because I kind of, from my perception, and I could be completely wrong, I've got a feeling that the leadership's getting younger. There's spin-off businesses. I still consider myself quite young, Paul.
How old are you now? I was actually earlier.
45. But even spin-off businesses 45 younger, much younger.
Yeah.
From guys and girls that have cut their teeth at these businesses and now want to be the next sort of generation of leaders. And then maybe there's then a gap in the middle. There's this kind of disparity piece. But equally, I think at client level, I'm noticing decision makers are a lot younger. When I was, again, sort of more junior level, it was always grey hairs making decisions. I think that's changed. It's a real, I think it's a demographic shift.
100%. I think some of it does come back to a genuine lack of people in the system. And, we've seen, I think it's calmed down, but I would say proper post-COVID where it was like mentally boom time, 22, 23 were great years, whether in construction or most industries, it was like, wow, this is mental, proper boom times. What you saw in the QS world and the PM world and probably the building surveying world, probably in fact every professional white-collar construction discipline, is that you had a lot of chronic over-promotion. People would, someone had barely been a senior QS for 6 months and suddenly they're getting promoted to associate. And there's been, I think that the industry has suffered a little bit for that because it's like standards go more, I think, out of a need to retain people, and it's like, well, give them the next title.
I know that is it, or making up titles to do that. But I mean, it was difficult, and that kind of COVID. A lot of people, were on the wrong side of that, and when you're trying to recruit. I mean, I'm sort of preaching to the converted here, but for us on our side, trying to get someone who's as good as their CV reads is hard, and the numbers are inflated. But I mean, it is what it is.
Well, the reality is, day job was taken over, which started doing, and a couple of times when we analysed the APC results, the mental, absolutely mental, insofar as, like in London, the last time we did it, I bet this number hasn't massively changed. The last time we did it in London, and this, bear in mind, this is all chartered QS, so this would include a lot of individuals who are working for contractors. I think the number in London was 50.
Chartered?
Yeah.
Wow.
But then you look in the regional cities, let's say my hometown Leeds, you might have 5 people get chartered as a QS.
Really?
So this is the issue. These are numbers that you can really tell and measure. It's like less and less people are getting chartered compared to the number of people either leaving the UK, let's say either A, retirement, or B, going to the likes of Saudi or the US where they can double, treble the salaries to go to these places. So it's a continued challenge, I think, for the industry.
It is, yeah.
And hence why you can see a lot of consultancies thinking, oh, this AI thing looks interesting, because it's like we've got real productivity issues here, or can't find the right caliber of people. So
yeah,
shiny thing gonna help us.
And it will, but it can't. It can't. There's certain things it's great for. Taking the monotony away of some tasks, but it can't do this. It can't be on
That's it. You've
site
got to be
constantly.
careful. There's some great things it does, like minute taking. I
Yeah.
don't know why everyone isn't doing that now when they've got meetings.
But you know what? I think there was a boom of that again through COVID. But I think there is a lot of client pushback on that. I don't want to be filmed on a call. I don't want this recorded.
No, I think you definitely has two different people. It's quite funny what somebody was telling me the other day, which they said that all our clients have stopped it, and the realization was that they had because obviously anybody who's on it can then get a 6 entry, and they'd have like a full construction team meeting with the contracts and everything on.
Yeah.
They'd all leave. They'd carry on talking, going, "Oh, fucking all these contracts do this and that." It's like,
honestly, we've had some
contracts against the whole transcript.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah, that's it. This is an eye opener. It's banned. Yeah, we had one. We had an incident with that actually. That it did lead to it getting banned on that project. But
yeah,
that's for another day, mate.
Yeah. We'll talk about that one. I often keep on thinking. I need to find the right group of people. Possibly, maybe people who maybe kind of out of the industry or do something different, but similar to like what Gary Neville does with the Overlap, where they just talk about different things. There'd be some right quality bands where you kind of set this up and everyone just talks about.
Yeah.
Let me tell you when this happened years ago. It's like, oh Jesus.
You need a few contractors in on that.
Yeah, I think definitely so. Yeah. It's something I'm ticking in the back of my mind. It might be quite an amusing thing to do.
Yeah.
Chris, listen, we're coming up to an hour.
Bang on.
It goes by quickly. A lot of people say it goes like it flies by. So I always ask a couple of quick questions at the end. First, who would you say has been your best boss or mentor in your career?
I think there's two. It's the guys who headed up Bollingbrook, Peter Radford and Guy Rockingham.
Yeah.
Just great guys. I met Guy yesterday. He's actually working with him on a project, but he's also, businessman. There's no one like him.
Brilliant.
And, very good. Very
good.
Yeah.
And are they both still in the industry or?
Yeah, Guy's working as a partner at a PM firm,
right.
And Pete, he's taken a bit of a step back. Right. Tends to do a bit more professional services, but again, comes back to this kind of Bollingbrook sort of friends network, and we all sort of scratch each other's backs.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
that's a good sign of a good business, isn't it? That everyone stays in touch. Okay. And, if somebody was starting a business, obviously you're still fairly new into this yourself, but what we've gathered from this conversation, Chris, you've worked with a lot of interesting organisations, different sizes, and you've clearly got a wealth of knowledge, and hence why it was the right time to set up Echo. If you were going to gift I don't know if you read any kind of business books or self-improvement books, but if you were to give a book to somebody else starting business, what would that be?
Oh, well, in terms of what would be in it?
No, as in a book. Would you gift a particular? Is there a book you've read in the past that you think you'd might be useful? And don't worry, not everyone's a massive reader. And spring this question on people like, I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
To be honest, there's not, Paul. I mean, not that would steer them in sort of business life.
No, that's fair enough.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm well read.
Yeah.
But it's not.
Yeah.
No, there isn't. There isn't.
No, that's fine. There's a lot to be said. You kind of don't know what you don't know. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way, don't you, by making mistakes. And there's a lot of again, what makes a lot of brilliant businesses is that they don't go with a pre-described idea about what the business should be, and they kind of make their own rules up as they go along, and they find their own path as they go along. It's not always shouldn't always be set in stone. There's a set way to do things.
No, I don't think. I think if you go in with a preconceived, you've got to have a plan.
Yeah.
I think you go in with a preconceived idea that this is how it is.
Yeah.
It's not, is it? It's not a linear path. It snakes around. As I sort of touched on previously, what I've kind of tried to do, I've worked at a lot of companies and tried to, disseminate what the good bits were from the bad bits, and try and then take those
100%.
forward. Those are good bosses from the bad bosses. How did they treat people? How were the leadership?
A lot of people have said on this podcast that that question is actually sometimes the wrong question about who's been the best boss. Is actually, I've learned a lot from who's been the worst boss.
Well, yeah,
I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
You know, I
Not
don't
gonna name them.
No, exactly not. But I get that. But
Yeah.
but that's often where people
No,
learn.
you're right.
Right, this is how I do not want to manage people. Like, this is not.
Not even the boss. You know, bad leadership of a business is the quickest way for it to just go nowhere. You know, just either go backwards or stall. And you kind of, you know, you got to keep things fresh constantly. You got to constantly thinking about continuous improvement. You know, it's like you were saying, that whether it's tech, service lines, who you bring in, you don't know everything, right? So you need the right people around you as well. You know, to sort of
100%.
help you grow these consultancies.
100%. Yeah, no, I think a lot of people need to think a lot about that in terms of, you know, what is their, what are those other advisors they need around them to probably in some ways help them speed up. You know, I've had an NED work with us now for 2+ years, and he's brilliant. Just because he's been there, got a teacher, and seen lots of other companies making mistakes. So never says, right, you should do this, but he'll prod and poke at you until you find the answer. Which he knows you're going to get to, but he's just letting you find it yourself. Stuff like that is really, really useful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Chris, this has been brilliant. Thank you very much. I hope Echo keeps on growing. Great to see you got your first employee coming on board. I'm sure that'll kind of release the pressure valve for you a little bit in terms of having to do absolutely everything constantly. So
see it, mate.
If it goes well.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thanks
Thanks for getting involved. Cheers, Chris.
Brilliant. Cheers, Paul.